Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks to the Ministry of Regional Development and OSI Prague and FRA and everybody else who participated, the Office of Government in organizing this event to actually put it on. I have been referred to as a mother of Article 7.2 by the godfather of Article 7.2. I'll get to that in a second, but the one motherhood I would certainly assert was a request to OSI in my office a little over a year ago, or no, not even, less than a year ago, asking them to actually organize a seminar on housing and on the changes in the housing provisions of the structural funds, because without this kind of outreach and without this kind of popularization of what happened, I don't think there would be enough awareness among the managing authorities to really try to utilize it. So I'm really, really delighted that this seminar has been able to take place and is so well attended, and we have such quality speakers and such good breakout sessions. So I'm really, really delighted, because I think it is very important. I'm going to, and I wasn't sure whether going back into the history and the context under which the changes in the regulations took place would be, seen just as war stories. But I think that after listening to the very good panelists before me, I actually think it would be very useful, quite apart from the war stories, to tell you a little bit about how the changes took place, why they took place, and what they grew into, or what my hope is that they grew into or can grow into with proper implementation. And so I'll make a little segue. The initial reason for amending Article 7.2 of the European Regional Development Fund regulation was really fairly restricted, not for lack of ambition, certainly not for lack of, we're just trying to match Alekos's level of ambition and my catching up with his level of ambition and the realities in the European Commission and the interest to really move in this area. Now, this is very decidedly pre-Nicolas Sarkozy era of awareness about the issue of Roma integration in Europe. Okay, we are talking about 2007, early 2008, late 2008, when I became Deputy Director General responsible for policy development and implementation for structural funds, and discovered to quite some unease that the special provisions that new member states negotiated during the negotiations of regulations for the current financing period of the structural funds. Every 7 years there's a new budget and new regulations that go with it, new rules. And the new member states after accession negotiated the ability to use structural funds for housing interventions, which was traditionally not possible. And they argued that we have the Blat and Botten, the Panelaki, all over Eastern Europe, and we cannot have these massive public investment programs without catching such an important issue for energy efficiency reasons, and the fact that the housing estates are dangerous and bad for public health, etc. Let's use the structural funds also for that. Now, that was allowed. The new member states were successful in that. But what happened with my esteemed predecessors, who were then doing the Commission regulations, put sort of conditions onto the use of the money that were very, fairly onerous and very restrictive. And they had sort of a perverse effect. Because one of the conditions said it has to be, this money can be used only as part of integrated urban planning, integrated urban plans, and I think Deputy Minister referred to that in his opening presentation. The simple result was that structural funds could actually finance remodeling of housing estates of middle class and lower middle class, but could not touch housing estates of the poorest in the rural settlements, often segregated settlements throughout Eastern Europe. So we had this really, what I found it rather sort of offensive way of having the regulation, the combined effect of the Council and the Commission regulation. And so with my very few comrades at arms at that time, set out on a crusade to change that. Believe me, the discussion with the member states was a delight and a breeze compared to the internal discussions in the DG and in the Commission, because they said, no, we can't do housing. I said, well, but you allow housing here and you are excluding the poor. I mean, so anyway, it was done, and Article 7 became law, became part of the regulation in June of last year. And it was in the lead up to that, when it was already in the legislative process, that we actually had organized 2 study tours on the use of structural funds for housing, and not only housing, but using housing really as part of an integrated approach. Because housing, this restriction of housing was the missing piece. The structural funds could invest in education, could invest in job creation, could invest in health measures. Whether they did or not is another thing, but legally could. They just could not invest in rural housing. So we wanted to eliminate that, but also spur sort of a movement for really addressing these issues simultaneously. And so we went for the first inspiration to Spain, to Andalusia, which used structural funds for Roma integration interventions for a number of years. And that's where I really saw that building houses, when you work on it through involving the community, and you provide training and jobs to people and make them be part of building the house, etc. You do financial literacy training, etc. It can be really a community organizing tool, changes in the housing estates, and that was very strong inspiration to try to do something else than just allow this possibility there. And so the second stage came, and that was the Commission regulation, which wasn't mentioned here yet. Article 7.2 is from the Council regulation that had to be negotiated with the Council, and the Commission then does implementing regulation. And what we sneaked into the implementing regulation is really true conditionality that bites. And it's twofold. One is that the structural funds cannot be used only for housing interventions. They have to be part of a broader scheme. It doesn't mean that you have to do something on health and something on employment and something on education or on human rights, etc., and housing. It doesn't have to be all of it, but it has to be housing plus something else. So yes, you would need to build a community center or a creche or some type of social infrastructure, or have a program, training programs, lifelong learning programs, early childhood education interventions together with housing. So that's one condition. And the second condition, which of course, being from Slovakia, and that was our second study tour, was we saw, I think, 18 of them, of the segregated settlements in eastern and central Slovakia, and saw the gigantic differences between them. And, you know, one with a fantastic mayor and a great head of the school, really working with the community, and, you know, 5 kilometers away, the disastrous place, like you referred to, that you were surprised to see in Europe, places that look worse than some of the favelas in Rio. So was the sort of second inspiration for the second condition in the Commission regulation, which is desegregation. Because I must admit, and it's not only my home country, it's in several others, segregation, which I believe is probably one of the clearest examples of a discredited public policy on many research-based grounds, etc., because it's a short-term gain for medium-term severe pain. Is happily practiced by governments in my part of Europe and perhaps elsewhere. And so we put this into the regulation, and it means if the governments want to use public money to build segregated settlements, great, but you can't do it with European money. Alekos said that a lot of the interventions are up to national authorities, which is true, but we do have, well, sorry, Europe, when we were doing this, I was using the word we, but you have an instrument that's important, and that's money in the structural funds. So this was really the logic behind it and the tools, and combined with outreach events, hopefully it can indeed provide the platform that one hoped when one was putting this ink to paper. The one thing that Alekos mentioned at the end is the fact that, yes, as the structural funds are going to be redesigned again and new regulations are being drafted now, it is important to have some pilot cases, to have some successes on the ground. Otherwise, it's going to easily disappear. But in closing, I just want to sort of step away from housing a little bit and just say that as a now outsider looking at the European Commission and having the World Bank hat and being involved in some of the OSI initiatives on Roma, I must say that I have a feeling that we are really on the cusp of an important change. I think that it started with the enlargement and with the entry of people from this part of the world into the structures in Europe. Then we got through, there were some, the principles, changes in the regulations, and then it all got very accelerated through the events in August of last year in France that sort of made dealing with Roma inclusion into really a strong political mandate. But it came already on the tail of much larger awareness, a lot of research. The World Bank has done a study on costs of Roma exclusion, which we now call benefits of Roma inclusion, politically correctly, and so there is a buzz. There is still lack of data, but I cannot mention here that the very encouraging sign is that all large institutions that not easily dance together are now dancing together to do the biggest household survey of Roma. It's financed by DG Regio, supported by the European Parliament initially, and carried out by UNDP, the World Bank, and Fundamental Rights Agency. And all of these institutions are going to use one questionnaire with one methodology, and will have probably the largest ever data set of Roma households on a number of key rights and socioeconomic development issues combined. So I think this working together element is very important, and it's also important that the Commission doesn't feel that A, isolated, and B, that it needs to reinvent the wheel, because there have been a lot of a lot of initiatives. And last but not least, I want to mention OSI as really someone who has been not only a leader, but a constant, very useful irritant for all of these agencies. And now it's being brought into also this household survey as hopefully is deciding whether to be part of the household survey to cover the outside of Europe elements. So I think that we really are on the cusp of changes, and I hope that this seminar and conference will contribute to that. Thank you very much.